All right, we're getting there. Run a show from here. And this will keep us honest. We have, Grace, 45 minutes until we absolutely have to clear the room because the property has some other things going on. So Ron and I are going to have a discussion, a little bi-directional Q&A. We may engage the audience, so make sure you're on your toes. And then Grace is going to come up at the end, and she's going to give some clarity on the evening and all the fun that is in front of us in the next few hours. Yeah? So first and foremost, and it's humbling to do this, I've been looking forward to this all day, let me introduce Ron Frey. Ron is a many-time entrepreneur in our industry and other industries, many-time automotive executive, many-time investor, advisor, trusted strategist. Most recently picked up another job title, board member of Dealerware in our new corporate structure. We're very excited about that. And also not only a friend of mine, but someone I admire and respect a ton and have leaned on many times in my career and specifically my journey at Dealerware before we had the kind of platform that we do, before I had the kind of team and the capacity that we now have, the customer base that we service, and the opportunity in front of us. So this gentleman to my left was a believer in everything we do together before it was obvious. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that.
We've been in the industry. We've lived in the industry. You've lived in the industry. And I talked to Steve a little bit about this, and he took us down more of a scary road of China and AI. But I'll ask a similar question. In this moment, how do you feel about the market? Yep. We've gone through it all. Yep. The cycles, 17% interest rates, spikes and valleys to fuel prices, pandemics and wars, everything. What makes this moment in time for this industry unique?
Yep. So before I do that, first of all, just congratulations to you and the team. This is a terrific event. I love the size of it. It's from networking, being able to pull people together and have networking conversations, the amount of ground that we've covered and topics. It would be impossible for any of you to walk out of here not motivated, inspired, and a little bit smarter for your time. Which, if we're going to give up a day, that's the objective, and I'd say, home run. So well done. And then secondly, you also said it, Matt, where, going back, I remember you drawing this on the whiteboard. In fact, it wasn't even a whiteboard. You drew it on a glass window, this vision, and being able to watch it just get executed exactly the where it is today has been an exciting run. Okay, so where do I see the opportunity today?
And what makes it unique?
Yeah, in some ways, I'll tell you, it's really not that unique. So I'm now 40 years into this. I started my first automotive business in 1985, and so I got to see, it was awesome when I heard the modem for the first time, right? And got inspired of what technology could do. And as I watched this journey of all the perils of auto retail, of how the internet's going to destroy the business, and how upfront pricing is going to wreck dealers, and all the different evolutions we've seen. In fact, even when I first started my very first business, I couldn't even I thought that the business would evolve in a way that what I was creating would be obsolete. And what I found in 40 years is it just keeps getting more exciting. And there just keeps becoming more and more opportunities. And what you've seen is a bit of a mindset. And so look, we're seeing technology rapidly changing. It's opening up all sorts of opportunities for solution providers to double down and be able to serve their customers better. It's solution providers that are creating different solutions in terms of opening up new market opportunities for dealers. I mean, you watch dealers. Dealers are frankly more excited now than ever. The progressive ones, like you saw You saw Brian pretty excited today, right? So look, like there's new challenges. Maybe things are going more rapid. You get younger generations coming up with better ideas, but it's the same thing. It's just changing, looking for the opportunities.
Do you think that we are focused on the right things right now at Dealerware?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, and I'll tell you a few reasons why, and it'll resonate to others that are building solutions too. If we think about the journey, I was Chief Strategy Officer at AutoNation in 2008 when the financial crisis started, and I was in the operating room with Mike Jackson, and he said at that point, I think SAR was around 16 million, and he said SAR is going to go down to 10 million. We're going to organize AutoNation to be able to operate at a 10 million SAR profitably. Go. And so we watched the business, just for that, and then look, we came out of it. We just started seeing, business from there increase, and it created all sorts of opportunities. We've been on a really interesting wave right up to around 2019 when it started getting really hard. Margins were compressed. We're selling vehicles at a loss. It was just getting more and more difficult, for retailing. It was changing rapidly, and then COVID came around and put us on another trajectory back up. And so frankly, for, since 2010, it's kind of been good times for auto retail. I was talking to a prominent retailer just last week, and he said, Ron, he says, I'm selling majority of my vehicles at a negative PVR, which is what we were doing in 2019. And he said, so I'm really starting to think about and adjust the business and move quickly. So what does that mean? It means we're back to probably that 2019 era. Margins are getting compressed. We've had tons of innovation on the variable ops side of the business. Dealers are resilient because they're phenomenal at looking for and unlocking new profit centers. So if my profit centers are moving, again, from variable ops, they're going to move into fixed ops. And there's not been a ton of innovation around fixed operations. And so you have multiple things happening. You have margin compression, new profit centers, focused on fixed ops, and what are they going to focus on? I've got to think about, as a dealer, how do I take cost out of my organization? How do I speed up processes? And how do I delight my customers better? Like, that's what's on their mind. So what are you doing? Like, you're doing things that take cost out of their organization. Like, you're eliminating, different providers. You're eliminating data sets that they have to do. You are speeding up their processes by putting all this information and opportunities in one single platform for them. You're opening up new profit centers by providing new profit opportunities, and you're creating better customer experiences, which is what will create their loyalty and downstream revenue. That's all you've talked about today, and that's what matters to our dealer partners, and it's going to matter a lot going forward. And so, yes.
Very good. I have a bias. I tend to agree. And you mentioned resilience. And that's a big word that comes up often in the context of our retail partners. And it's very true, right? Decades later, more than 100 years later, the franchise model persists. I would say it extends to our OEM partners as well. Yeah. Navigating the supply chain like our OEM partners do, I do think we can compare to the resilience that we see from our retail partners navigating the retail environment. Yep. And both are important. And when I think about the way forward, and when I think about comparing the moment, the now of it all, to previous eras in my career, I'm thinking that there is a newfound willingness at retail and within the OEM ranks to work a little bit more openly And I do think data and source of truth on both sides, where we sit in the middle. We bring in, through our application software, we bring in transactional data, we bring in fleet utilization data, we bring in data from the OEMs, we show both sides a unified view. I am personally feeling that the breakthroughs in technology, particularly around data and BI, and what AI will do to accelerate those truthful views of the business on both sides, will get people on the same page. And where I see it happening a little bit, maybe more so than ever before, is production and inventory discipline. Mm-hmm. I thought once we had solved, as an industry, microchips and semiconductors, it would jump back up to 4 or 5 million vehicles in inventory. That is not happening anymore. I see a recalibration at the OEM level and at the retail level of looking at the same unified views of the business and making collaborative decisions on what to do about it. Building less cars is not convenient. Making sure that the retailers still are profitable by shouldering the burden of short-term tariffs on vehicles is not a convenient thing to manage for OEMs. But we're not, as an industry, building too many cars. We're not shipping the wrong model mix. And it's because we're talking about common, unified, and truthful views of the business. And I want to be, and I know my team wants to be, on the right side of that to accelerate it. And inventory management and production discipline are examples. But I actually think that we are closer together on the most important things than I've ever seen before in my career. And I think data is the currency that will keep on paying that rent. Is that something that you're feeling, or am I just kind of a hopeful optimist?
Look, it is. We spent so much time in the industry talking about the internet and what the internet's going to do, and then it's all about digital retail and how that was going to be the big changer. It really is data. Like, data is the thing that unlocks all the opportunity. And when we think about how do we become more efficient and take cost out and speed up, it's like the only way you're going to unlock that is through the data. Now, the new tools of AI allow you to use the data in a thoughtful way. The other thing that I think is interesting today is, in my journey, we spent a lot of time, in retailers, sharing with them what the future was going to be, and how they should be thinking about tools and how they should be preparing. And they would chase a lot of shiny objects, hoping that this was the silver bullet that was going to, create, the next opportunity. The difference is you have now younger, more tech-native executives rising up in auto retail. They're the ones that are, frankly, even becoming like a lot smarter than the solution provider. So they're driving today the things that they want you to do, which is very different. Like, you watched Brian up here today. Like, his ideas, like, that is, we have a whole generation that is doing that, and I think that's going to be the thing that's going to really drive, this portion of the industry forward.
Can you help me unpack something that's always in my head? And one of our speakers mentioned it. Yep. In our business, it's speed to market. It's how fast you get a solution to a problem in the market for your users. And businesses like Dealerware, many businesses that we're all a part of, we always struggle, just to have a very open moment with everyone, with, do we wait for 90%? Do we wait for 95%? Do we wait for 100%? And does the market pass us by in the false pursuit of perfection? Or is the game from here really, let's get, one of the speakers mentioned it earlier, I'll just stay with the same number. Let's get 70% into the market and iterate a couple of points at a time and make it better over time, as long as we're comfortable with some, of the drawbacks from launch. So shorthand for all of this is, what's your perspective in the market today versus the markets that we've been in the past on speed to market and the pursuit of a final solution?
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple layered thoughts. One, as an entrepreneur, working with my teams, one of the first lectures I would give them is what really mattered to me was to be right 51% of the time. You and I have probably had this conversation. And my thought is that, look, I'm going to make bad decisions, but as long as I make more good decisions than bad decisions, my business is going to continue to move forward. So A, I'm willing to make mistakes. That's the only way you can innovate. Second is I've been around a lot of businesses. I get to look at a lot of businesses. The biggest mistake in business is not moving fast enough. It's always the biggest mistake. More mistakes are made in business by moving too slow than too fast. Yeah. And so speed matters. All right, here's the but. Is speed with the right things that also our customers can absorb. Because the biggest challenge is, frankly, it's not the technology, it's not the solution, it's the change management in the stores. And so you can only do so many things and manage so much change management, especially if it's process. And so the thing for you to have to do is to think about what really matters most to my dealers that is going to help them take cost out, speed up the processes, and delight their customers. How do we integrate that with the change management? So you got to be super pragmatic. And then everything you build, you have to build for the future that at the right time, like before they're thinking about it, at the right time, that you can then slip these things in. I don't need it to be perfect, but you just got to stay one step ahead. That's hard, right? So you can do too much too fast as well.
Yeah. What questions do you have for me?
Actually, you know what I'd like? I would love to hear questions out here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I get you all the time. Anything on the mind of the audience? So that was a bad idea. 51%, right? So, all right, this is on the 49% side.
They're incubating. Kyler, we're calling on you. What's on your mind? You arguably know as much about Dealerware as anyone in here.
Yeah, so when we look at the business models, and you and I had sort of a discussion outside about this, so you didn't see this, but I'm thinking about this, which is a lot of the manufacturers go through different production cycles, right? And if you think about introducing fleets, and as I think about Brian, one of the things in a side conversation I asked him was, hey, are you losing the opportunity to put customers in courtesy vehicles? And so when you think about this production dilemma of how many vehicles are really going to get produced, how many can you push out, how many will the manufacturer punch for you to be able to build these programs? Talk me through what the thought process is around which brands are right to take the sort of helm of a rental at the dealership model, and what does that production do, and how do they change to sort of react to it?
Yeah, so there's a macro uncontrollable for us and most retailers in regards to the relationship between new vehicle and used vehicle supply and demand at the brand level and at the model level within the brands. Not all vehicles residualize the same way, particularly in the first 6 to 12 months. So if you build too many cars for natural demand, putting more of those vehicles in loaner or rental services, generally that story doesn't end very well. Yeah? So I would say to everyone universally, although there are brands, and I will not name names in mixed company, but there are brands that struggle with residual value management. There are other brands that struggle less with residual value management, and for them, it's a strength. But it's within the brand, at the segment level, at the model level, at the drivetrain level, and how you configure the vehicles. There are, and I'll lean into Mr. Benstock a little bit, there are diamonds that sometimes you have to scratch the surface off. There are vehicles across the industry, all segments, all brands, that are great for delivering product market fit on shared mobility, loaners, rentals, etc. Managing the quantity of it all, it's easier for some than others. It's difficult for all. Where we come in, and those who end up winning and capitalizing on outsized opportunity, I think we heard from one of the operators today, are those, and Brian mentioned it, those that can figure out across their operation, their eclectic operation of many things, and the partners that they work with, present company included, how do you activate a fleet that does more than one thing? How do you take the needs of your collision repair partners, your service department, the new paid rental demand that you're generating in the market, the vehicle demand for extended test drives, and Brian mentioned it, even vehicle subscription offerings that you deploy in Queens. How do you take all of the needs and all the strategic initiatives that you have across the whole operation and activate one fleet to service all of it? Because whatever gets hot, you will have a commingled, flexible fleet with a technology layer that will map within the fleet supply with demand. If you just run 100 cars for a loaner fleet, it's going to be 75% utilization. Sometimes it's going to be 55% utilization. But when that happens, if that same fleet can service rental demand, test drive demand, subscription demand, body shop, collision repair, replacement demand, then you're really onto something. And honestly, it doesn't matter which brand you represent and how many cars. The flexibility is going to allow you to load balance where to place the vehicles, and you're going to end up winning. Particularly if you've, in parallel, like Brian has, built a proper used car machine to absorb the supply after it's done in its useful life as a fleet vehicle.
Just going to ask, is there two recovering CFOs here? As you look at a CPO program and where help is needed from the manufacturer to drive the ability to fluctuate up and down on your fleet size as an operator, any thoughts on the right structure for that or things that could be done to facilitate this to be easier for dealers?
I'll do two things, and then love to hear from you on this.
And then I'm giving the microphone to someone else who's got a big question.
So, two things that I got wrong when I led sales at Audi as it related to certified pre-owned. And at the time, my mistakes were forgiven by a very strong brand, a new product portfolio, and a healthy market. But we asked the dealers to over-recondition the vehicles, which just put extra cost without value to the customer. It put their wholesale costs up on the car, it compressed their margin, and in some cases, it motivated the dealers to push price too high, and it slowed down certified adoption more than it should have. So, point being, from my mistakes, advice to OEMs that are managing and scaling and growing certified programs, don't put more cost into the system than necessary. Yeah? The other thing that I will say, again, based on experience, and I mentioned, and it was rebuked a little bit by Brian, the vehicle affordability issue. As an OEM executive, I would be thinking about how my certified portfolio fits in my overall vehicle portfolio. Yeah? If the cost of the business and the cost of distribution has reached such that within your branded portfolio of vehicles, you don't have the same kind of $35,000, $40,000 price points that you used to have on the new car side, make sure that your certified pre-owned strategy is complementary in the price ladder. Yeah, I think what has happened too often, and I do believe it's getting better, is they're two separate things, managed by two separate groups that don't really thoughtfully think about the full branded portfolio of products. It's just the new stuff, the pre-owned stuff, and frankly, most of the pre-owned stuff has been under-resourced, and it's been the burden of the retailers to figure it out. I miss my old job every once in a while, but I love this job.
The other thing that I love that you're doing is how you're integrating, whether it's Hop Drive or Axle or ThoughtSpot, into our products, taking best-in-class partners and then integrating them into the workflow and experience of your product is also brilliant, because you cannot be best-in-class in everything, but having it in a single platform, and then the fact that all this data now becomes unified to better serve, just only creates, more things on your platform that you're then going to be able to add over time. So you're just going to be able to keep coming back with more and more and more solutions as this industry evolves. So, as we look at another 5 years from now, it'll be really fascinating to see what this grows into. So, well done.
Thank you. And more vehicles through our shared programs that go through our platform. Not only is that more inventory to source CPO, but we will layer in the insights on the timing, right? We will read the vehicle onboard diagnostics and telematics. We'll know where the car is, what are the miles, what are the market comps, and we will put our partners in a position to action.
Yeah.
Not just know, but to action the best thing to do to manage this somewhat complicated vehicle affordability dynamic. And we're here for all of it. I mean, I really love what we're doing, and I think it becomes more and more strategically relevant to more and more people across the industry. Yeah, with all the bias that's assumed.
Well said.
Thank you, my friend.
Great day.
Appreciate you.
Great
Yeah.
time. Again, congratulations to you and the team for pulling this all together. And what a great day.
What a great day. Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.